you should now have completed the centre triangle and picked up all your loops along this edge of the triangle to start knitting this Old Shale border. So this is focusing on the point with the Old Shale borders working away from the centre here. You will actually start at the left hand end, come down this centre section here with the 3 garter stitches are not actually shown on the chart that I'm going to talk to you about in a minute, and then you will carry on the pattern up the other side. So the way the shawl works is that you're going to increase at the beginning of the row on a right side row, work the pattern, increase at this point, knit the centre 3 stitches, increase just after those, and again knit to nearly the end of the shawl where you do another increase. The increases happen every right side row, and then every 5th and 6th row you've got the lace pattern repeat coming up. The other thing I want to point out while I've got this sample in front of me is that you're working garter stitch, so that's knit every row for 4 rows, which are these 2 ridges here, and then 2 rows of stocking stitch, 4 rows of garter stitch, 2 rows of stocking stitch, 4 rows of garter stitch, etc. So I'm going to put the shawl away and bring over the chart. The chart looks slightly different to the chart we did in the previous section. When you knitted the centre of the shawl, you were knitting the whole part of the shawl in garter stitch, so you knitted every row. In this section, as I've just explained, we're doing garter stitch, which is knit every row for 4 rows, and then stocking stitch for 2 rows, and the lace part of the pattern comes in the first of the 2 stocking stitch rows. Because we're combining garter stitch and stocking stitch in this chart, the chart has to indicate the stitches on both right side and wrong side rows. So a blank square is knit on right side and purl on wrong side. So if you look at reading the chart from right to left for a right side row, we've got 2 blank squares which are knit, a yarn over, blank squares to the end, and then a yarn over. Row 2 is a wrong side row. Now on a wrong side row, or if you have a square with a spot in it, it's purl on the right side but knit on the wrong side. So in order to illustrate garter stitch, you have to have a row of spots to tell you that that is a knit row on the wrong side. So that's how garter stitch is illustrated on the chart. The symbols for all of the increases and decreases you've come across already in the previous charts. We've still got our left leaning decreases and our right leaning decreases and the yarn over circle. On this row here we've got a wrong side row, so a blank square on a wrong side is purl. So you would purl all these stitches up to the 2 stitches before the end of the chart, which are now knit. and that gives you this garter stitch. So you have a 2-stitch garter stitch edge on this end of the chart, and this end of the chart will then go into the 3 garter stitches at the centre point. You've actually got 2 charts for the lace pattern. So this is the first half from the beginning of the row to the centre, and then this chart is from the centre, which would be the starting after the 3 garter stitches, working across, repeating the pattern in the red section until you get to the end of the row, and again you do your yarn overs 2 stitches from the end of the row. So I hope that makes the charts a little bit clearer for you. I'm now going to demonstrate working the first lace row. I'm just going to bring over my chart for this small sample. So I've picked up all my stitches. In the contrast yarn I've knitted back doing my increase row, and then I've worked 4 knit rows. So I'm now ready to start my first lace pattern row. The lace pattern is going to be knitted in the grey yarn, so I'm just going to get some of that out and move the pink out of the way. I cut the grey yarn when I finished the centre triangle, so I will have to rejoin it now. And the way I normally join is as follows. So I'm going to knit the first stitch with the grey yarn, and I hold on to both ends of the new yarn. Try not to split the pink. And then the next stitch I'm going to knit with both ends of the grey yarn. Once I've done that, I'm going to drop the tail end. So I'm just continuing with the single strand. You just have to remember when you come back at the end of the next row that you have those 2 loops are 1 stitch. I do a yarn over because we're increasing at the beginning of the row, 2 stitches in every right side row, and then in the pattern I need to knit 3 stitches. The next symbol is a yarn over, and then it's followed by a decrease, which will be a left leaning decrease. So I'm working the SSAK decrease, so I do slip, slip, stick my needle back through the 2 and knit the 2 together. So if you're following along on your chart, this is row 5 of the chart. I've now got to the stitch marker, which marks the beginning of a full pattern repeat. So I'll just slip that over, and the pattern repeat is knit 2 together 3 times, yarn over, knit 1 5 times, and then it's going to be SSK 3 times. I know I'm in the right place. Sorry, I've got to do yarn over first. So yarn over, and I know I'm in the right place because I've got 6 stitches left before the end of my full repeat marker. So I'm going to do 3 SSK decreases. Slip, slip, knit 2 together. And make sure before you start doing the decreases you did work the yarn over. So you'll continue repeating that basic pattern until you get to your end of full repeat marker. Slip the marker, and we've now got to work the pattern just over these few stitches coming to the centre point. So I'm going to do a knit 2 together, yarn over, knit 3. And that should bring you to the end of row 5 on chart C little a. Sorry, I haven't done the yarn over. So the yarn over is actually the end of that chart. So you must bring that forward before you slip the marker that marks your centre 3 stitches. So I'll move that over. So this is my yarn over, which is not anchored until I knit the next stitch. I knit my next 3 stitches, and these 3 stitches are not on either chart. The instructions in the pattern do tell you the centre 3 don't appear on either chart. Slip the stitch marker. I'm now about to start working row 5 of chart C little b. So again, it starts with a yarn over, knit 3, yarn over, and we're going to work 1 decrease, so 1 left leaning decrease. Slip the marker, and we're now just doing the full pattern repeat exactly the same as the opposite side. I just need a bit more yarn. So that's knit 2 together 3 times, yarn over, knit 1 5 times, yarn over, and again I can see I've got 6 stitches left, which are 3 decreases, so I'm fine. Again, this is 3 left leaning decreases, I've got to the stitch marker, so I slip the stitch marker, keeping the tail at the front. And to do the last little section I have to do a knit 2 together, right leaning decrease, yarn over, and then I obviously dropped a stitch when I was picking up earlier, so I'm just going to pick up that stitch properly. And then I've got to knit 3, 1, 2, 3, 1 more yarn over, which is 2 stitches before the end, and knit the last 2 stitches. So that's row 5 of the pattern. If I just start doing row 6, this is where we start the row with 2 knit stitches, and then you're going to purl all the stitches up to the stitch markers at the V point. I'll try not to split the yarn. These multi-stranded yarns can be a problem sometimes. So again, we're purling across the row. When you get to a stitch marker, just slip it across and carry on purling across the row. I'll just get to the centre. So again, when you come to the stitch marker, you just slip it from the left to the right needle, making sure that the tail of the marker is away from where the knitting yarn is. This is coming down now to the V point. So the yellow marker is marking the point. I slip the marker, take the yarn between the needles so that I can knit the next 3 stitches, which are the 3 garter stitches at the centre. Slip the marker, so in fact I'm actually going to bring the yarn back first, slip the marker across, and then continue purling across the other side until I get to the last 2 stitches here, where I will knit those 2 stitches. And then you will work 4 rows of garter stitch in the contrast colour, making sure you're still working your increases, 1 at the beginning, 2 at the centre and 1 at the end. And then you'll work into the next lace repeat. So I think you'll find once you've got the pattern established with your stitch markers in place, it's fairly simple and straightforward to follow. Just follow the chart until you've worked to the top of the chart, which is 40 rows, at which point we can stop to move on to the next stage.